all the way to goddamn Iceland to see you. So, just a couple of quick things. Number one, I love you. Number two, other people quote, this is Spinal Tap, and I quote the Born Fighters documentary all the time. I've seen it 20 times. This morning, I saw it 20 times. Finally, what the hell was the third thing? I'll ask my question, sure. Oh, no, I have a beer cooler at home that I've named the Jesus of Coolers in your honor. So,
cute.
This is my question. Yesterday, Elvis spoke glowingly of your production, and I couldn't agree more. For my money, Blood and Chocolate is one of the best sounding albums of the 80s because it doesn't sound like an 80s album. There's no reverb wash, it's very stripped down. So my question is, why did the shine wear off the Apple production-wise for you, for other people? And I've got a few bucks in my pocket. What would it take for you to come out of production retirement and do my next album?
Well, I'm afraid you wouldn't really want me to do.
Yes, I would.
Well, I think there was a sort of seismic change that happened in the 1980s with making records, and it suddenly got serious, and almost overnight the equipment changed. It was improved, and I was really used to. I got my training from Dave Edmonds, watching him. He was. No doubt about it, and we've had our ups and downs, me and Dave, over the years, but it took me a long time to become friends with him. You know, he's a real loner, I could say, a real loser. He's not, he's a loner, and it took me a long time to become friends with him. And bit by bit, he started trusting me, you know, and he let me watch him make these records. And he was incredible in the studio. You know, he used to sort of play the mixing desk. You know, he used to use it almost like another instrument. And when in the 1980s suddenly everything went digital, you couldn't do that anymore. You had loads of options, tons and tons of options, but none of them really sounded very good. You know, whereas with the old-fashioned Edmonds sort of way, you just sort of make the equipment do what you wanted by sort of mistreating it, really, in a way. And that meant that anybody who had who'd come up in that training, his sort of school of training, could wrestle something pretty cool out of you know, and you had to have a bit of, wave your arms around, you know, a bit, you know, and think you could do it. If you could do that, you were a record producer. Suddenly in the 80s, you had to be something else. You had to be an engineer. You know, I was never an engineer. I was very good at telling people who were engineers what I wanted to hear. But they had to not mind me saying, I wanted to go, you know, or, you know, making this sort of funny noise. I couldn't say, well, you know, I want 17 dB on the so. You know, I didn't know any of the technical terms. That way I got results sometimes, and other times it wasn't so good. You know, the days it wasn't so good. But when it was going well, we made some good records together. And suddenly, in the 1980s, when this change came along, it suddenly, I thought it sounded so horrible. I thought those first digital records that people used to freak out about, you know, and think they sounded wonderful. I really couldn't stand it. It was almost like nails down a blackboard, you know. It really, I couldn't bear to be in a room with that it's changed now. You know, the digital recordings, I wouldn't know the difference actually between analog and digital nowadays, but those first digital desks and that equipment, I couldn't bear the sound of it. So I thought, I think my work here is done, and so that's why I stopped. Thank you for asking that comment. I apologise for a long-winded answer. That gentleman in the green shirt, is he going to be